Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever looked across the room at someone you've loved for years and wondered, do they still truly see me, or have I simply become another part of their routine? If that question has ever crossed your mind, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel and join us, because these aren't just relationship stories. They're stories about the quiet emotions people bury beneath daily routines, polite conversations, and familiar smiles. Tonight's story isn't about cheating, revenge, or dramatic betrayal. It's about something much quieter, and sometimes far more dangerous. It's about what happens when two people slowly stop choosing each other, without even realizing it. People often think relationships end with one unforgettable moment. A huge argument. A shocking confession. Someone walking out and never coming back. But real life rarely works that way. Sometimes nothing dramatic happens at all. Sometimes love doesn't disappear overnight. Sometimes it simply falls asleep. And by the time either person notices, neither of them remembers exactly when the silence became normal. That was our story. If someone had driven past our house that evening, they would have thought we had the perfect life. The kitchen glowed with warm yellow light. Rain traced gentle lines across the windows. A soft jazz playlist drifted quietly through the room, filling every corner with music that somehow made the evening feel peaceful. Everything looked exactly the way a comfortable marriage is supposed to look. My husband sat across from me, slowly stirring a cup of tea, round and round, the same small circles he'd probably made thousands of times before. His movements were calm, relaxed, predictable. For years, I had found those little habits comforting. That night, they unsettled me. Funny how perspective changes. The exact thing that once made you feel safe can suddenly make you wonder whether life has quietly stopped moving. I watched him more carefully than I'd watched him in a long time. Not his smile. Not his eyes. Faces can lie. People spend their whole lives learning how to wear the right expression. They know when to smile, when to laugh, when to nod, when to pretend everything is perfectly okay. Hands are different. Hands tell stories people don't mean to tell. They hesitate. They fidget. They tighten when fear appears. They relax when someone stops trying. His hands looked comfortable. Almost too comfortable. Not nervous. Not excited. Not curious. Just settled. Like someone who had become so familiar with his life that he no longer questioned any part of it. For years, I believed that was exactly what marriage was supposed to become. Wasn't that what everyone hoped for? Find someone loyal. Build a home together. Create traditions. Face life's difficult seasons side by side. Eventually reach a place where everything feels safe enough that you no longer worry about tomorrow. We had done all of that. We had survived job losses, unexpected bills, family disagreements that seemed impossible to solve, stress that followed us home from work, sleepless nights, arguments that left us both emotionally exhausted before ending with quiet apologies neither of us was too proud to give. We had celebrated birthdays, forgotten anniversaries, made up for forgotten anniversaries with flowers bought in guilty panic the next morning. We had laughed until our stomachs hurt over jokes no one else would ever understand. Movie nights usually ended with us talking through half the film, making sarcastic comments that were somehow more entertaining than the movie itself. On paper, we were doing well. There wasn't a major problem. No obvious crisis. No secret affair. No endless fighting. Nothing anyone could point to and say, there. That's what's wrong. And maybe that's why it scared me so much. Because nothing was broken. But something inside us had quietly gone to sleep. The realization didn't arrive all at once. It crept into my mind slowly over several months. Small moments. Tiny observations. Conversations that somehow felt shorter than they used to. Silences that became easier than curiosity. Days that blended together until Monday looked exactly like Thursday. At first I ignored it. Everyone says marriage changes. Everyone says excitement fades. Everyone says routine is healthy. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was simply expecting too much. But the more I ignored the feeling, the louder it became. Until one evening, sitting across from the man I'd loved for years, I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. I've been thinking, I finally said. The words sounded light, almost casual, but inside, they carried months of unanswered questions. He smiled instantly. It was automatic. Warm. Gentle. Comforting. The same smile that had melted my worries countless times before. That sentence usually means trouble, he joked softly. Normally, I would have laughed without thinking. Normally, I would have teased him back. But this time, my laugh sounded forced. Even to me. Because this conversation wasn't playful. It wasn't one of those late-night discussions couples have before forgetting about it the next morning. This one mattered. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far away. Not close enough to frighten us. Just close enough to remind us a storm existed. He lifted his mug and took another slow sip. Meanwhile, my heartbeat felt impossibly loud. Almost as if the silence between us had started listening. I want to ask you something, I said. But I need you to really hear me before you answer. His expression shifted. Only slightly. Someone else might not have noticed. I did. The smile faded. His shoulders straightened. The spoon stopped moving inside his cup. For the first time that evening, he wasn't half listening. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't thinking about tomorrow's schedule. He was completely present. I'm listening. I inhaled deeply. The breath didn't calm me. If anything, it reminded me how nervous I actually was. I think. The words caught in my throat. We've become too comfortable. He blinked. His eyebrows drew together. Comfortable. His voice wasn't defensive. Just confused. Isn't that supposed to be a good thing? It is. I answered almost immediately. But maybe it can become dangerous if we're no longer paying attention to each other. He leaned back in his chair. Not because he disagreed. Because he was trying to understand. I could almost see him searching for the missing piece of a puzzle he didn't know existed. Truthfully, I wasn't entirely sure I understood it myself. All I knew was that something inside me had been restless for months. Not because I wanted someone else. Not because I wanted a different life. Because I miss feeling emotionally awake inside the life I already had. That's a very difficult feeling to explain. Especially to someone who genuinely loves you. How do you tell a good partner they're accidentally becoming emotionally invisible? How do you explain that someone can care for you deeply, yet slowly stop seeing who you're becoming? He looked at me quietly. We still talk, he said. We spend time together. We eat dinner together. So what is this really about? I looked down at the kitchen table. Years of family dinners had left tiny scratches across the wood. Nothing dramatic. Just hundreds of little marks collected over time. Each one almost invisible by itself. Together, they told the story of years. That thought stayed with me. Relationships aren't usually damaged by one giant moment. They're shaped by thousands of tiny moments no one notices while they're happening. It's about forgetting we had a choice, I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Rain continued tapping softly against the glass. The refrigerator hummed somewhere behind us. A clock ticked quietly from the hallway. Ordinary sounds. The kind you never notice until silence makes them impossible to ignore. Finally he spoke. I chose you. His voice carried certainty. I know you did. I smiled sadly. But you chose me years ago. His jaw tightened just enough for me to notice. And that's not enough anymore? The question hurt. Not because he sounded angry. Because he sounded sincere. He truly believed choosing me once should still be enough. And maybe part of me wished it was. Life would be much easier if love stayed alive on memory alone. But I didn't believe it did. I think people assume love keeps itself alive, I said quietly. They think once you've built something strong, it simply keeps going forever. He watched me carefully. And you don't believe that? I shook my head. No. I think relationships can survive. But the people inside them can slowly stop waking up emotionally. His eyes stayed on mine. He didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. His silence somehow made everything more vulnerable. Because anger creates distance. Silence creates honesty. After what felt like forever, he finally asked the question I knew was coming. What exactly are you asking for? I had imagined this conversation dozens of times. Maybe hundreds. In every version inside my head, I sounded calm, confident, certain. Reality felt completely different. Because speaking the truth out loud always sounds more frightening than rehearsing it in silence. I want us to stop hiding behind routine. We're not hiding, he answered gently. I looked at him. Aren't we? For the first time that evening, he looked away. Only for a second. But fear makes us notice even the smallest movements. I think we've stopped saying certain things. I continued carefully. The difficult thoughts. The uncomfortable questions. The little disappointments. We soften everything before we say it. We protect each other from honesty until honesty slowly disappears. He released a long breath. That's marriage. I shook my head slowly. No. I think that's fear. The room became impossibly quiet. Not because anyone raised their voice. Neither of us did. The silence came from something much deeper. The realization that this conversation had crossed a line neither of us could uncross. He rubbed his thumb around the edge of his mug without realizing he was doing it. So you think we've been pretending? His voice was almost a whisper. I think. I answered carefully. We've been surviving. And surviving isn't always the same thing as truly living. He met my eyes again. In what way? I hesitated. Because this wasn't philosophy anymore. This was us. This was our marriage. I think sometimes we stay together because leaving sounds impossible. I swallowed. Not because we wake up every morning and consciously choose each other again. His expression changed. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to know those words had landed somewhere deep. He stared at me. Is that really what you think we've become? No. I answered quickly. Not